Hey everyone, today we're gonna make some easy vegan dinner recipes that are wholesome, nourishing, and super easy to make. I love all three of these recipes. I think they're perfect for this time of year. They're bold and flavorful and very plant-focused. So I hope you enjoy these easy dinner recipes. I teamed up with Kind of Wild to pair a different wine with every recipe to give you some good ideas. I know a lot of you guys asked me about vegan wines, and these are not only vegan, but also certified organic and really delicious. So I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get started. We're gonna start with a quick and easy one. These are vegan chicken tacos topped with a spicy, creamy, zesty street corn. I'm gonna start with some frozen corn, and I really just wanna thaw it and warm it up a little bit. So I do 2 tablespoons of water and I just steam until it is nice and warmed through. Then I'll set that aside to cool slightly and move on to making the sauce. So street corn usually has a creamy sauce, so I'm gonna start with some vegan mayo, add salt and chili powder, and the key ingredient, fresh lime juice. I'll add some vegan Parmesan, and what's so good about this is it's kind of savory and rich, and it's going to really complement the natural sweetness of the corn. Also, because the corn's gonna be slightly warm, it will melt that cheese, and this just becomes so decadent. Like, I love this as a side dish just on its own, but we're not gonna stop there. We're gonna make some chicken tacos. So I'm gonna take some vegan chicken. I like to get the kind that's not breaded, and then I'll put it in a pan with some olive oil, a splash of water, and just some taco seasoning. That's all you need. It's super easy and quick. You're just gonna saute this until it's warmed through. So this dinner comes together very, very quick. You can probably get it on the table in about 15 minutes. If you don't want to use vegan chicken, you could definitely swap this out for chickpeas. I love both versions. I think if you've never made it before, definitely try it with chicken because it just shows how incredible vegan food can be and how you're really not missing anything by going vegan. But chickpeas cooked in the exact same way also works. So then I'm just gonna mix my corn with the sauce. I'm gonna prepare an avocado, and then it's time to assemble. So we're gonna take some warm tortillas, add our seasoned vegan chicken, and I like to be pretty generous with the street corn because it's definitely my favorite part. And I find that the perfect pairing is creamy, nice big hearty chunks of avocado, fresh cilantro, and if you wanna spice things up a little hot sauce is definitely delicious as well. So far, everyone I've served these tacos to has been a big fan because it just is a little something different. I love that it kind of has these elevated sort of like restaurant or takeout style vibes, but it's homemade, and I usually have a lot of these ingredients on hand. You know, the frozen chicken, the frozen corn, pretty much always have tortillas. You don't need a lot to make a really great dinner. The full recipe with all the measurements for these tacos and every dinner you see in this video is in the description box below. I like serving these chicken tacos with a Spanish-style red wine like Tempranillo, and Kind of Wild makes a Tempranillo Grenache from La Mancha, Spain, which is southeast of Madrid. On the nose, you're gonna get some violet, some rose, a little tobacco, and warming baking spices, and you'll taste red fruit. And I like that it's kind of lighter on the palate. It's very smooth, and it has a bit of a spicy finish, which complements the spices in the tacos. So in the tacos, we've got chili powder, we've got cumin, we've got black pepper, all in the taco seasoning that we used on the vegan chicken, and this wine really complements those savory spices, and I think it has a nice acidity too, so it kind of helps to like cut through some of that savory richness and just really bring everything to life and let those spices shine. So this is a delicious pairing. I also like serving this wine with like beefy dishes, like vegan beef dishes. So I have a recipe called vegan beef and pickle tacos. It actually doesn't even have vegan beef in it. It's a lentil based dish, but it has a lot of those same savory spices and flavors that you would use to season beef, and so it's a really good pairing with this wine. So I'll link that one down below. It's like when you want takeout and you want something that just feels a little bit different and kind of a, you know, a fresh new spin on something you may make a lot like tacos. That is my go-to for that, and I think this wine goes really well with it. It also pairs really nicely with tomato sauces. So if you wanted to make something kind of classic and cozy like my vegan baked ziti, this would be a perfect pairing for that. Next up, we're gonna make my chickpea and spinach casserole, and this definitely has pot pie vibes, but it's actually so much easier to make and very nourishing as well, very wholesome and packed with lots of good stuff. I'm gonna start by roasting some potatoes and carrots, and I do whole cloves of garlic, and that way it can kind of roast and soften. It gets a little bit sweet and the flavor kind of mellows a little bit, which is gonna be perfect for later when we blend the garlic into the sauce. So that's gonna go into the oven, and then I'm gonna go ahead and make the cream sauce. This is gonna be almost kind of like a gravy for the casserole. So I start with cashews and soy milk, and I'm gonna add some depth and umami with some miso paste. I like to use a measuring spoon, but then I'll use a little butter knife to kind of coax it out. It makes it so much easier. Then for the spices, we're gonna do salt, pepper, onion powder, and dried sage, which just makes this so cozy. I'll finish with a little bit of nooch and add a bit of levity and brightness with some fresh lemon. At this point, the garlic is nice and soft, so I'm gonna add the roasted garlic to the blender and blend this creamy sauce all together. It's really cozy because we've got the garlic and the sage, and it's gonna be thick and creamy creamy, but not as thick as it'll be later on when it bakes. You basically want to do the spoon test, which is where you run your finger down the back of a spoon. If it doesn't meet in the middle, it's the perfect consistency. The last thing to do is just brown the mushrooms. And if you don't like mushrooms, if you don't like the flavor of them, you don't really think they taste like much, making sure that they get nice and caramelized literally does wonders. So I'm not really stirring them here. I kind of let them cook undisturbed for several minutes in a hot saute pan. And after that, I'm going to add some salt and some fresh rosemary, which instantly smells so cozy, so good. And I'm just going to let this cook until everything's nice and brown. I'm going to deglaze the pan with a dry white wine. This is really going to intensify the flavor, and it's going to cook down. So you want to basically cook it until there's only about a tablespoon of liquid remaining, and then we're going to add our veggies. I love that this recipe uses frozen veggies because it just makes everything super convenient and cost effective as well. So I'm going to add the frozen veggies, some chickpeas, and the roasted veg, along with that sauce that we created earlier. And already this looks so good. Like sometimes I'm tempted just to stop right here, serve it up in a bowl because it's just so aromatic. You get the garlic and the herbs. It's delicious, but it's even better because we're going to bake this. So the sauce is going to thicken up even more. The veggies, like all those flavors, are going to develop even more in the oven. And we're going to top this with some sourdough bread. Instead of having, like a pie crust or a puff pastry crust, I'm just going to season some sourdough bread. And if you have stale bread, even better. Great way to use it up so it doesn't go to waste. I'll drizzle some olive oil, salt, and pepper, although sometimes I also do everything but the bagel seasoning too, which is just an extra layer of flavor that's so good. And you really want to cover as much surface area as you can here. You want it to kind of, not just lightly cover it, but you really want to kind of pack it in, because this is the part that just gets so delicious because it's like crispy and golden on top. And then the bottom part kind of absorbs some of that sauce. And it's just, it's like my favorite part. I feel like this really makes the dish. You can also top this with a little bit of vegan Parmesan if you want. And just like anytime you're making a casserole or even a baked pasta dish, you don't want to cut into it right away. I like to let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, which I know it's hard to be patient, but it really does make a big difference. It helps to kind of set the casserole. It allows the sauce to thicken up a little bit, and it also just makes it easier to serve. Don't worry, it's still going to be piping hot and delicious after 10 to 15 minutes. And this is honestly one of my favorite comfort meals because it's a healthy comfort food. You feel so good after you eat a meal like this because it's nicely balanced. We've got those chickpeas, we've got lots of veggies, we've got creamy, crunchy textures, so many good kind of herby garlic flavors, and the miso and the white wine just gives this a lot of depth, so it really tastes like a slow-cooked, home-cooked meal. For my chickpea and spinach casserole, I like to serve a wine that is kind of bright and fresh, like a Chenin Blanc. I like how it kind of cuts through the richness and the savoriness of the dish and just adds a little bit of levity and brightness that I think balances it perfectly. This Chenin Blanc is one of their newer wines, and it's so good. You can smell white flower, you get a little citrus, and when you taste it, you taste some tart apple with melon and kind of citrusy notes, which is really refreshing and beautiful. It's got an elevated acidity, so again, it really complements the richness and the creaminess of the sauce that we made from those cashews and herbs and garlic and all of that. It's just such a nice way to kind of round out all of those flavors and really bring them to life. One thing that's really cool about this wine is it's made in the Columbia Valley of Washington. It's not only certified vegan, but it's also certified Global GAP, which stands for Good Agricultural Practices, and it is certified glyphosate residue free, which is so important. And this wine in particular would go really well with a recipe like my rainbow summer rolls with a spicy peanut dipping sauce. I'll link that recipe down below if you want to try that combo because it is delicious. Meatball subs are such a comfort food to me, and I love that these are really hearty and nourishing because the meatballs are fully plant-based and they're easier to make than you may think. I'm going to start by sauteing some onions, carrots, and garlic, and then I'm going to add some mushrooms. And I use my little veggie chopper for this. It makes really quick work out of the prep so you don't have to spend a long time chopping, but it also makes better quality meatballs because it has a more cohesive, uniform texture when everything is nice and small. So I'm going to cook that down, and then I'm going to add lots of flavor with salt, pepper, a little bit of red pepper flakes, and some dried Italian herbs. Immediately, the herbs are going to hit the pan and become super fragrant and delicious. Then I'm going to add some dried fennel, and this really gives a nice kind of sausage quality, which I think is great for the meatballs. Then I'll add some chopped walnuts and let this toast for a few minutes, and then I can take it off the heat entirely and allow it to cool a little bit. I'll add in some cooked lentils, which make these meatballs super nourishing, high in protein, and one of my favorite ingredients to use whenever I'm making meatballs, burgers, or meatloafs, I'll use some vegan Worcestershire sauce, and it just gives it so much depth. It's so flavorful. meatball, and a little really goes a long way. Then instead of adding an egg to bind the meatballs together, I'm gonna take about 1/3 of the mixture and blend it together with some fresh basil. And I'm just gonna blend this until it resembles kind of a chunky hummus. And this is gonna help to hold the meatballs together so they don't have to use an egg or even an egg alternative. Then I'm gonna add some chickpea flour and some baking soda, and that's really gonna create some levity so that we don't have like dry, dense, hard meatballs. We want them to be kind of light and airy, and so that's really gonna help with that. Then I just roll them into balls, and as you can see, these are just very, very nutrient dense, fully plant-based meatballs. They have the legumes, but they also have lots of veggies, and we've got delicious herbs and spices that are gonna make this taste so good, especially when we make it into subs. So what I like to do after it bakes, it's gonna bake for about 15 minutes. And after that, I will just toss it together with some warm store-bought marinara. And I like to really coat the individual meatballs first before putting it on the sub. It just adds an extra layer of flavor. Another trick that I love is to take some vegan mozzarella, which tends to have a hard time melting. And also, I feel like it comes in especially large shreds sometimes. So I will pulse that in I'm telling you, this machine, $20, I get so much use out of it. It's crazy. But I will just pulse that so that I get smaller bits of cheese. It melts a little better, and I just find it a little bit more enjoyable when the pieces are small. Totally optional, but that's what I like to do. So I take some bread, and I find that you can do really any kind of bread you like, but a nice hoagie roll like this is just so satisfying because it's like fluffy on the inside and crispy on the outside. I'll do lots of marinara sauce. I do about 3 meatballs per roll, and then I'll top it with lots of that vegan cheese. Then it's gonna go back into the oven just to kind of melt the cheese and warm everything back up, and this is what you get. It seriously smells incredible. You really get the garlic, the fresh basil. We get a little bit of that fennel too, those dried Italian herbs, and that crispy, warm bread. I love serving this with a nice red wine. It's just such a classic pairing, and this one from Kind of Wild goes perfectly because it's got some strong tannins and a nice kind of, structure to it that holds up well. So these lentil meatball subs are kind of like feel-good food in my opinion. It's the kind of thing you want to cozy up with, and I find that they pair perfectly with Kind of Wild's Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a beautiful ruby red color. This wine actually also pairs really well with barbecue flavors. I feel like a lot of times with Cabernets, I think that like what I used to think of a lot is pasta dishes and like meaty dishes and stuff, and it is really good with those kinds of dishes. Like if you wanted to do some kind of like vegan burgers or vegan meatloafs, I'll put recipes below. I've got 2 vegan burger recipes that I think would be good. Also, my mini meatloaf muffins would be delicious with this, but also this wine goes really well with barbecue. So if you love barbecue and you want to have like a good wine to go with your barbecue, this would be great for that. And I did a vegan version of Panera's, I think they call it the barbecue chicken smokehouse sandwich, if I'm remembering that correctly. So I did a vegan version of that, and this would be a great wine to pair with that. It really helps to kind of bring out all those lovely spices, and you get some of that sweetness and that tang that is kind of mimicked in the wine. So it's a really fun wine to pair with barbecue, and maybe something that's a little bit less expected. So I would definitely recommend giving that a try, and I'll put all the recipes that I just mentioned in the description box below. If you want to try Kind of Wild, I recommend trying their bundles. They have these kind of mix and match bundles, and they have a bunch of different options. Not only is it fun because that way you can really see how versatile their line is. They've got so many great wines to choose from, but this is also fun to send as a gift. So if there's someone in your life who has a birthday coming up, or the holidays are sort of around the corner-ish, and you're thinking like, what am I gonna get? These are great gifts, and they really are just kind of fun and interactive. There's sort of like a sampling process involved with them, and so people really love to receive these as gifts. And if you want to get 20% off, you can use my code, and the link is in the description box below. So definitely give them a try. Let me know which wine ends up being your favorite. I can't pick a favorite because, as you can see, it really depends on my mood, what time of year it is, and what I'm serving it with, but there's really so many options. So if you have any questions about a wine that you've selected and you don't know like what to pair it with, please let me know in the comments, and I'll make some suggestions, and I would love to hear yours as well. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you again to Kind of Wild for teaming up with me, and I will see you in a video very soon. Bye.